Hey everyone, my name is Tommy Reynolds and this is my top 10 travel survival guide for photographers. Travel survival guide, I should really have thought of a name before I started this video. Top 10 travel photography tips, yeah, we'll go with that. Going away abroad to specifically do a photo assignment or just for a personal project, for me is the best thing. It's what I enjoy most of all. But there are some things you need to know. So here are my top 10 tips if you're a photographer and you're thinking of going abroad. So tip number 1 is research your location. There is absolutely no point you going to India or Varanasi, or which is in India. There's no point you going to anywhere in the world without having some inclination of what you want to photograph. So I would, if I was you, I would look at other photographers that have been, look at other blogs, blog pages. I was really lucky and fortunate enough that my friend Lauren Carris Cooks, who is a fantastic food blogger by the way, I'll leave a link to her stuff below. She went to Iceland about a week before I went. So when she came back, we had a Skype talk and she was able to give me some really cool tips and like how to make my way around the Golden Circle and like some tips on Google Maps and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's really good that you do your research first, have some idea of what you want to photograph before you go. So that would be tip number 1. Tip number 2, maybe optional, depending on really where you are in the world, but maybe you want to consider this anyway, is to tape up your gear. Now I've said this in the past in other vlogs, but I usually like to tape up my gear to purposely make it not look great, like it's been beaten up. I've said it in what's in my camera bag vlog in the past, but it's just, and you can even do this on bags as well. I didn't mention that as well, but if you're taking like a low pro bag and it's, you know, we all know if it's a low pro bag, it's gonna probably have a very nice camera inside. So just tape up your gear, just make it look a bit beat up, make it look like it's not worth a lot of money. Tape up the Canon logo, the Nikon logo, just to be a bit more inconspicuous about it, because you don't want it like, hello, this is an expensive camera, please steal me. Okay, you don't want to have that round. You don't want to have all of that gear around your neck and it look obvious, you know, what it is from a distance. So try and make it a bit beat up. So that would be tip number 2. Tip number 3 would be to photograph your business card and also photograph your business card from your smartphone as well, and make it your lock screen. And I said this in my Sri Lanka video. The very first thing I say in my Sri Lanka video is that's the first things I do when I go away. So if your camera ever got lost or if your phone ever got lost, then the first thing they're going to see is your business card with all your details on. So that would be tip number 3. Tip number 4 is get to know your gear. So if you've purposely got a new camera and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go abroad with this brand new camera, you're going to spend so much time scratching your head trying to figure out how to use it, or you might have got a new lens, or you may have had your camera for a while but you've not really kind of dug it out in a while. My advice would be to get it out like a week or 2 before you go away and make sure you know everything about your camera. You know where all the buttons are, you know how to change the white balance, you know how to change the shutter speed, the aperture, etc. Or even if you are just in auto mode, just make sure you know how to change the like kind of presets like into like portrait mode, landscape mode, etc. And you just kind of know the ins and outs, or as much as you can, to do what you want to do with it. I like to think of my camera as an extension of my arm. It's just, if I need to do something, I just do it. So a good example would be recently when I went to Iceland, I used a brand new camera. I used the Phase 1, well, it was brand new for me, but I used the Phase 1. Never used that camera ever, but I was fortunate enough to have it sent to me about a week beforehand so I could have a play with it. So I could get used to it before going to Iceland, and I still kind of like had a couple of moments, but nowhere near as much as I would have done had I not tried it out at all, because it would have been crazy to do that. So that would be my next tip. Tip number 5, insurance, obviously. Tip number 6 is I would back up your files to at least 2 different locations, and preferably make one of them a cloud. So when I go away, I have an external hard drive that I take with me, and so all the files get saved onto that hard drive, and they also then go to my Dropbox as well when I get back to the hotel. Don't do that like every other day or at the end, like towards the end of the trip. Do it every night or every time you get back to your hotel. do a backup. So when I was in India, I was going out twice a day, and I wasn't doing it at the end of the day, I was doing it every time I walked back into my hotel room. Just go back to your laptop and back up the files, and then back them up to Dropbox or a cloud, anything that you've got. When we were in Iceland, I went with my buddies Jimmy and Mike, and me and Mike had a really cool system that when we'd get back to the hotel, I would back up all of my files to my hard drive. Then I would take Mike's cards and I would back up his gear as well to my hard drive, and he would do the exact same for my gear. So we would have all of our footage in 2 separate hard drives in 2 separate locations, as well as backing it up online as best we could. And another good tip about that is that something that Mike taught me is that don't just simply back up your files to a hard drive and then hand that hard drive to someone else to copy, because you may have forgotten to copy over a particular file on the card, and then when you format it the next day, you don't have it, and neither does your other guy have it, because he's just copied over your hard drive. So make sure you're physically, if you're backing up to different locations, make sure you're backing up the cards to different locations and not just copying it to a hard drive and then copying that hard drive somewhere else, because you may have forgotten and left something on a SD card. So that's something that I learned from Mike, so that was a great tip. Tip number 7 is be disciplined. This is something that when I went to Sri Lanka, and which was kind of my first kind of big abroad kind of holiday thing, well, not holiday, but and that's the thing, I don't call them holidays. I don't think of them as holidays, because you couldn't do, I don't think you could do what I do and call it a holiday. Like, oh, you know, I'm going to take my camera and I'm going to do this, as well as, you know, be with the family or be with friends, and, you know, and make photography a secondary thing. You've got to go with the intention of taking photos. It has to be. And you do have to be disciplined, especially if in India and Sri Lanka, where I was vlogging as well. So my bedside table looked absolutely ridiculous in my hotel room, because I had chargers for my GoPro, for my compact camera, for my DSLR, for my laptop. I just had, and for the flash as well, I just had chargers coming out of my ears. And so you've got to be disciplined. You've got to make sure everything is charged, everything is backed up, all the cards are ready for the next day. It's quite daunting at first of how much you have to do to get the level of, to get the quality I was trying to get. So you do have to be very disciplined, because it is very easy to say, don't worry about, I won't worry about filming this bit, or I won't worry about shooting this bit. You know, you got to be disciplined if you wanna get the quality, and it is so worth it. If you do put in the effort, it is so worth it. I'm so glad that I put in all that effort in India to do it all myself, film it all from the GoPro and film it from my compact camera. You know, I'm so glad that I've come away and I was able to do that, because I didn't get a spare moment to really, apart from the evenings, I guess, when we were sat eating dinner, to really kind of, I was about to say enjoy it, but obviously I enjoyed it because that is what I love to do. But I just want you to be aware that my itinerary isn't for everyone, and kind of going on a tangent here, but I would just say be disciplined. If this is what you want to do, to go and specifically take photos, you need to be disciplined. You know, getting up every morning at 4:30 every morning to get the sunrise, because that is, and we all know, the best time to photograph, and obviously sunset. But for me in India, for example, I was photographing 99% of the photos I took in India was sunrise. So, and it was at 4:30, between 4:30 and 7 every morning. I had to be up, just had to do it, had to get the shots. It's very easy to just say, no, I'll just lie in. You missed the day. So that would be my next tip. Tip number 8, take your time. So when I went to India, for example, I could have very easily, when I booked the holiday, to scratch the surface of a few different places and jump to different places in the 2 weeks or 3 weeks. However, I decided that I would spend my whole time in one city, and that was so much better, because you then get to know the ins and outs of that one city. You get to be able to just take it all in, take that city in, and know where all the best spots are to photograph. If I'm only spending one day in each city because we're bouncing around, I don't have time to take that in. It's like when you tour as a music photographer, you don't have time to take all these cities in, because they just become a blur, you know, and you just don't really There's no takeaway, I don't think, from that. So that would be my next tip, would be to take your time, enjoy, and try and enjoy it as well, and spend as much time in one location as you can, and get to know that location and the people. My next tip is introduce yourself. If you're like me and you're going abroad because you love to take portraits, introduce yourself. I mean, you might be able to tell from my style that I'm not really a street photographer. I mean, I take photos in the streets, but it's not like kind of like click or like, you know, taking it waist level. There we go. Kind of like waist level shooting or anything like that. I go up to people and say, hey, my name's Tommy. I'm a portrait photographer. Is there any chance I can just take your portrait? And you get to know the people as well. I mean, how great is that? I mean, that's why I love to talk to people. I love to get their stories and add that context. Just is so much better with the photograph than just having the photograph of just someone like a street photographer would, where they may, I mean, some do, but some don't approach the people and they just capture it, you know, as was. But I like to get to know them, sit down with them, have a chat. Why are they sat right there at this moment in time? What led them there? What struggles are they going through right now? That sort of thing. That's the stuff I want to know. So that's why I think that's a great tip, is to introduce yourself and get to know them. Tip number 10, my favorite and last tip. Now, if you can't introduce yourself because they don't speak the language, then tip number 10 is get yourself a guide. I said this at the end of my India video, but this is so valuable to have a guide, because they will know the best spots, they will know where to go. They can introduce themselves on your behalf, you know, if they speak the language. You cannot put a price on that peace of mind of being driven around and, you know, having a local drive you around and they know where the best spots are. And again, 99% of the shots I got in India, I would not have gotten without that guide. So absolutely amazing tip is to get yourself a guide if this is what you want to do. And you just feel a lot safer as well. You just feel like, as I said just now, you know, that peace of mind. It's nice to have that peace of mind. You can't put a price on that. So that would be my final tip, is to get yourself a guide. Well, thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my 10 tips for travel photography. Those have been that's been what I've learned over the last few years. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any other suggestions, then leave a comment below if you have any further tips, so we can all add to this video. And that's about it from me. As always, I will see you again next time. Cheers guys, bye bye.